Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity.
And also by the Connected Yoga Teacher Collective. So this is something brand new that I am trying out after talking with some of you from our Facebook group and some of you who listen to the podcast. Thank you so much for the feedback that you've either sent to our voicemail button or to our email, or that you gave in some of the live Facebook videos that I've done. Over and over this week and last week, I have been working with yoga teachers from around the globe, and I am so impressed with how much they have learned in such a short time about teaching online live yoga. If you're not listening to this in real time and you're listening past the coronavirus pandemic, then this won't make a lot of sense. But for those of you who are listening in real time, you get it. We get to tell this story someday to people who won't even know what we went through. Anyway, for now, a lot of you have questions about how to teach online and teach live online classes. I am taking in all of those questions, and I'm so excited that I see answers coming up when I'm working with yoga teachers, but I see also even more coming up from these yoga teachers who are learning as they go. And this is where the inspiration for the collective really came from. It came from your many questions. And I have to also tell you that I'm flying by the seat of my pants on this one. There's not even a website ready for you to go to as I'm recording this. I've made a little note for myself to get this going, but it's like I know that yoga teachers want this very quickly. And so we're working on creating this on the fly. This collective is a group of yoga teachers who have figured things out teaching another group of us. So we'll all be either teaching or learning together and connecting. I am super excited about this. This is going to be through video so that you can see the real behind the scenes of how things are set up. And I want to make it so that it's live so that you can ask questions. Make sure, if you are interested in this, you are subscribed to my email list and you will get all of the information as it goes out. Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I'm a mom of 3, a yoga teacher, and a trainer and consultant who works for yoga teachers. And this podcast was created for you so that you can connect to the information and inspiration every single week and feel supported as you navigate being a yoga teacher and also an entrepreneur. Every business owner knows that there are a lot of moving parts to a business. As you know, it's not just about teaching yoga classes. You have to figure out the admin side of things, such as scheduling, collecting payments, the sales, the marketing side, and then all of the marketing and promotional aspects of running a business. As your yoga business expands and grows, you may get to the point where you need help in your business to manage all of these elements. And you may be wondering where you can find the help you need. So many of you have reached out to ask me, how did you hire a VA? How did you know when to hire a VA? And how can I become a VA and do this as a side job, as well as being a yoga teacher? This is why I'm super excited about today's episode. I feel like it's great timing in that if we are doing really well in building our business as a yoga teacher in these times, we might be able to hire a VA, or we might see the point where we need to hire a VA. Sandra Booker joins me today on the episode to share with us all about virtual assistants, aka VAs, and how we can use their services in our yoga business. She really dives into, do I need a VA or do I need to look at my own productivity? She also tells us what we need to be looking at before hiring a VA, how much this might cost, where to find them, and questions you should ask before you hire a potential VA. And speaking of hiring, today's episode goes along really well with next week's episode. Next week, we're going to be talking to Renee Claire. I recorded both of these episodes back near the end of 2019. You're going to hear me refer to a team member who no longer works for the Connected Yoga Teacher team, but who is still really close to our team. Cindy Stewart is out in the world doing other work right now, and you're going to hear me really talk about how amazing she is in today's episode. And in next week's episode, you're going to hear the process that I went through as I hired 2 new people for our team. Renee Claire talks about her recruiting process in a way that you can do the same process. She breaks it down in 10 steps next week, or in a way where you can hire her to help her to recruit someone for your team. With everything that we're dealing with right now with the pandemic, Connected Yoga Teachers, I am hearing from a lot of people who either need to find a side hustle, a side job, or people who have maybe closed their studio or are working at a studio that just closed and need another income. Or I'm talking with yoga teachers whose online business just exploded and they need the help in this busy time. This is our chance to really see how we can build a business right now. Maybe it's online, maybe we're making plans for having something that's in person in the future. We can work to build the business so that we can help our communities and our economies. I learned so much from talking to Sandra. I know that you're going to as well. She has some tips that work for anyone, even if you're not even close to hiring, to, okay, how can I get myself up ready to hire someone? All of the show notes for today's episode are ready for you at theconnectedyogateacher.com/166. There you can find the links that we talk about along with clickable timestamps so you can easily fast forward to a topic that interests you or go back if you're listening while you're on the go. Before we meet Sandra, I want to give a special thank you to Kimberly who left an audio review. Kimberly, thank you so much for doing this. This was back before coronavirus pandemic hit. Kimberly attended a Zoom demo that I did because I was getting a lot of questions about how do I teach one-on-one yoga on Zoom. If you would like access to this video, I just want to tell you that it is in real time. We had people showing up, testing out their audio, and well, you'll hear Kimberly's explanation. She really appreciated the space and the time that I gave in that Zoom demo. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback about it, so I thought I should get it out there and share it with all of you if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Now, if you're already off and running and you know how to use Zoom, you do not need this Zoom demo at all. Have a listen to what Kimberly said about the Zoom demo time.
Shannon, hi, it's Kimberly. I am calling finally to say thank you and to leave you a review. Been connected with you on the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast for a while and listening to a lot of your variety of content there. And I just finished sitting in on the recording that you did with a group of people to teach us how to use Zoom as a platform for our one-on-ones. And I just appreciate the space that you create for people to try things out, and the invitation, not just once, but twice, sometimes 3 times, to say, hey, try your microphone out, or hey, here's the place where you can see if, the sound is carrying, or I love how real and accessible you are, and you're so generous with your experience, and you really do such a lovely job of creating these platforms for us to show up and to connect. So thank you for all of that. I look forward to continued listening.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. It was an absolute honor to show up with different yoga teachers. And this was even before we had to know about teaching online. It was fun to hang out. Thank you so much for leaving that voice message. I want to send another huge thanks to our sponsor, Schedulicity. Schedulicity recently announced their Schedulicity Cares grant. I hope all of you are signing up for Schedulicity and applying for this grant. I really do. I talked with Schedulicity this week, and they are doing this to help small businesses out. 3 times a week, they are giving $500 to any of their Schedulicity small businesses. So if you are a yoga teacher in North America and you don't have a booking software that you use and love, I would highly recommend checking Schedulicity out. Let's hear our hot tip of the week from the team over at Schedulicity.
Hello, Connected Yoga Teachers. This is Hillary from Schedulicity with the hot tip of the week. Flex your business muscles with Schedulicity. We make it easy to expand as you grow. If you add a new teacher or front desk staff, you can give them their own class schedules and unique logins. You can also add new classes or workshops as you advance your expertise. Increase your clientele when new students find you through the Schedule a City marketplace, and keep track of them by adding photos or notes to their client profiles. You can even add the multiple location management add-on when you're ready to open a second, third, or 20th location. Successful businesses grow, and Schedule a City knows you need tools that are as strong and flexible as your practice.
Thank you for all that you do, Team Schedule a City. Alrighty, let's dive in and meet Sandra. Sandra Booker is the founder of Any Old Task, where she provides small business owners with business support and assistance services. She specializes in workflow and process review and helps streamline business processes and develop efficient workflows to keep things organized and on track. When she's not busy running digital course launches for A-list clients like Tarzan K, who we've had on the podcast in episode 139, and Laura Belgray, she's receiving accolades in her community, like the 40 Under 40 Award, turning away throngs of people wanting to hire her, and helping startup VAs generate the same kind of raving clientele she enjoys in her own business. Let's dive in to learn more about how having a VA can change your yoga business. Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, Sandra. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Shannon.
I first got to know you through email when I was trying to book Tarzan onto the podcast. And then I got to meet you in person where you were helping with Tarzan's big event with Sage and Tarzan in Niagara Falls, Ontario. And I got really curious, and I get a lot of questions from our yoga teachers about how to book a VA, when to book a VA. So I knew that you were the person to reach out to then. Tell us, what is the work that you do and who do you do it for?
Okay, so I started as a virtual assistant doing kind of like just anything anybody would give me. But I've since moved on to online business manager. So I have a couple people that work under me. So I still offer virtual assistant services, launch management, and online business management services. And I do it for pretty much like they're not even necessarily identifying themselves as this, but they tend to be heart-centered or soul-centered entrepreneurs who are in it to build connections with people and make the world a better place. They have like a bigger vision than just the bottom line. And it tends to be for just online service providers. I have a lot of copywriters, some pretty amazing people, like coaches. I have some business coaches. I even have a mortgage broker. It's everybody.
Right. Oh, that's so cool. So you call yourself an online business manager?
Yes, an online business manager.
Right.
Yeah.
It's nice to have. It's nice to have someone who's going to tell you what to do in your business.
It's nice because a lot of people, what they find is they have their business coach or their like mentor, whoever it is that helps them out with, figuring out their next steps and like clearing away the clutter. But then that business coach says, oh, you should do this. And then they leave you to do it. So your online business manager will say, okay, great. Well, here's how that will fit into your plan that we've already developed for your strategy for the next year. Can we fit it into this year? Yes or no? How does it affect the other goals you've set? And then how are we going to get there? Who do we need on the team in order to make that happen? What, and kind of working backwards to figure out, all right, if you want to do this thing, your business coach said, here's how you're going to do it. So
right.
Here's how we're going to get there.
So that feels really big picture. And I'm sure it sounds like a dream to most of our yoga teacher listeners. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are doing all of the work themselves and feeling overwhelmed. I know that they're feeling overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
And so how do they know when to hire a VA or a virtual assistant?
So they first, I always recommend looking at what their goals are. And because a lot of people, especially nowadays, like everybody and their mother is telling everybody, just go get a virtual assistant. They're going to change your life, And yeah, they can definitely change your life. But at the same time, I've had conversations with many, many people who did not need a virtual assistant at all. So you have to really think about what's happening in your business. So you have, what goals are you working towards right now? What do you need in order to achieve those goals, and what are you missing and what's holding you back? So I use the kind of example as like, if you're a social media manager and you're taking up all your, and you love doing your own social media, and you just love being in it and handling all that. But the day-to-day, like invoicing your clients and following up and handling customer queries and doing some research and like all of that day-to-day kind of stuff is holding you back, then you probably need a general admin VA. But if you weren't a social media manager, so say you're a yoga teacher and you have, you seem to be okay with doing your clients and everything, like that's all managed, you're able to do that. But the one thing that's really holding you back is your social media and like creating content and getting yourself out there. And then maybe, depending on what your goals are for your business, then maybe you might want to look at getting somebody in that space first, who does social media. And there are social media VAs out there, but like you would look for a social media manager rather than like a general admin VA. So it's really about figuring out what you need, what's holding you back, and then just determining who can help you best in that role.
Right. And so am I hearing you right? Or is my understanding correct? Or I'm just making a guess here, that we would possibly get to the point where we needed to hire a VA. We would see, okay, I can afford to pay this person and it will really clear my schedule so that I can do the thing that's making me more money or that I enjoy more, teaching yoga possibly.
Mm-hmm.
And then do we build up and possibly down the line hire an online business manager? Or is there ever a time where we have an online business manager but no VAs?
I have had people have an online business manager and no VA. And those people, and once again, it's just depending on what their strengths are and what is holding them back. So people who get lost in the big picture really easily, but have their systems, like you'll meet people that they have their systems down pat. Everything is a breeze, but when they try and figure out how to make things, like how to reach their goals, they're lost. They don't know like what team members they need to bring on and how to manage a project and how to really build anything out to reach the next level. So those people will sometimes get an online business manager before they get a VA.
Okay. If the big picture, like business planning is hard for them. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's such a good clarification. So roughly how much do VAs charge? I know you and I are both in Canada. A lot of our listeners are in the US and global. So feel free to tell me can't answer it.
No, I'll tell you for like, so it's a huge spectrum. You can find VAs for very little. And there's like VAs that you can get in the Philippines or from like these big, massive companies where they might charge you like $5 or $7 an hour. Those people tend to be like, if you have a very structured task that's repeating all the time that you need done, like certain reports run that are maybe just complicated, but it's like step A, B, C, D, E every single time, just repeated over and over again. Then those tasks, if that's all you have, then finding yourself like a low-cost VA like that can be really helpful. But typically you're looking at, for like a general admin VA, sometimes you'll be able to find somebody for $15 or $20 an hour. They will raise their price because you can't run a business on $15 or $20 an hour. So just so you know, if you do find somebody, they are, they're just starting out, they don't have the confidence yet. They may end up being amazing. But just so you know, they will raise their price once they realize they need to. But yeah, you'd be looking at like $30 to $40 an hour for a general admin VA, a good VA, to do a bunch of things in your business. And then when you're getting into the online business manager space, that's when you're going to tend to get towards like, 50, 65 an hour, sometimes more, depending on exactly, because there's online business managers who only do the upper range, and there's online business managers that will do kind of a combo of the upper range and maybe some tasks. So those people that do both tend to be kind of mid-range, because they're trying to straddle. So when you're trying to straddle, you're never doing both things really, really well. So they tend to be mid-range, and then they'll eventually realize they either want to be an online business manager or a VA, and they'll pick one and go with that. And then you have online business managers who, like myself, who, we're going to be like closer to $100 an hour. There's a lot of experience behind. We can do a lot of things. We can jump in and help when needed, and so those tend to be in the higher range of the rate.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't met anybody that does anything more than like 120. Like 120 seems to be the highest that I've found so far. So.
And also, I read in your bio here that you teach women how to get $50,000 a year in their own virtual assistant practice. So do you also work with the other VAs?
I do. So I have another company that I'm working on building up called the VA Studio. And it's basically where I go in and I help and I mentor women and help train them up as to do not just their own virtual assistant business, but to be like indispensable, right hand to somebody, and to be able to build that relationship with their client. So I really get into not just like how do you build a business, but then how do you create that relationship and maintain that relationship, and build your own skills to become indispensable to your clients.
Oh, that's great. The reason why I ask about that is because I know a lot of our yoga teacher listeners are looking for a side hustle. Some of them do love posting on social media, or, love to write, or love to get in and answer emails or things like that. So this is something that I actually don't see enough of right now in the yoga teacher world. I don't see enough VAs that are also yoga teachers, because those would be the people who really understand our business.
Yeah. It would. Yeah. The one thing you do want to kind of be careful about, like if you were to try and find a VA that was also a yoga teacher running their own, yoga practice, you just have to be careful that you're not hiring somebody who's going to leave you as soon as their business picks up, right? So having somebody who knows the space but doesn't want to teach would be great, rather than somebody that's just like they really want to be a yoga teacher, but it's maybe a little slower, so they're willing to do this other work until things pick up. Just know what you're getting in for. Not that it's a problem, it's just that just as long as you can plan for it. But if you don't know and you think that person's going to be there for the next year, and then 3 months later things blow up for them and you're left without a VA, it can be problematic. So just always be aware of what the goals of the person you're about to hire are.
Right.
So, yeah.
In my experience, some of my best hires are people who are very specialized. So, for example, for the podcast, my podcast editor, Suzanne, is fantastic. That's her thing. She does audio and video editing. So she's not a VA, but she definitely takes something that for a while I was thinking, would a VA take this? Or Crunch writes our show notes. So that's her thing. Like she writes show notes and articles for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what we would look for? Or like sometimes I think when we look for a VA, we're looking for someone who can do everything. And I wonder if that person exists.
Yeah. So you will find that person. Like every once in a while, you'll find that magic unicorn that they just seem to be able to take it on all. But even with that person, like they're human. So even though they can do it all, you're going to have some things they can do really, really, really well. Some things they can do less well. They can still do it. It will be passable, but it's not going to be amazing on every level. So you want to hire for the role. So for instance, like a general admin VA, if you want your general admin VA to also do your social media, they're going to do one of those things. Those are kind of extremes. So on average, you're going to have them, they're either going to be great at the admin and just passable at the social media, or they'll be great at the social media and passable at the admin. They don't tend to be able to do both really, really well. Again, that's not everybody. So you might find somebody that can do both extremely well, but like the more you add on, there's always something like that somebody can't do well. So I do tend to say, like, try not to load your VA up with everything. Like, all-in-ones don't work. They don't work with shampoo. They don't work with VAs. They just, they don't work. They do one thing really well and the other thing kind of okay. So people tend to try and do that, get their VAs to do everything, especially when they're like, money's tight or time is tight to try and find another person. And it's fine to have the person do both things as long as you know that it's not sustainable for them to do it long term. And that, again, it's just about knowing and accepting what's possible. And a lot of people they don't want to know and accept that. They just want to they just want it to happen. And then it's like, but it's not happening the way I want. Well, yeah, because the person you hired is still human. So,
right.
They have human fallacies. But
would we start to list out the tasks that we think we could pass on? Like, how do we prepare for possibly hiring a VA?
Yeah. So to prepare for hiring a VA, you're going to want to definitely start tracking what you're doing. Really get to know really well, what do you do every single minute of the day? Write it down in 15-minute increments, like every 15, even if you have to have a little alarm going off to remind yourself to record it, do it. There's tools and stuff that you can do as well, like rescue time and things and toggle and stuff. But however you're going to track everything you're doing so that you can then look at your time and go, wow, I spent an hour and a half in my email today. I don't need to be doing that. Like, it was all just this kind of stuff. Somebody else can handle that. Or, hey, I just spent 3 hours on Facebook and I didn't post anything. That's a problem.
I feel like you're talking to me, Sandra.
I'm actually talking to myself 5 years ago.
Instagram stories sucks me in these days.
Oh my gosh. I can't get into Instagram. I don't know, maybe I'm just.
Well, maybe it's a good thing because lately it's really, I do love the stories, but I love this that we time track. So my friend Amanda is going to listen to this and she'll be like, yeah, she's always telling people to time track. I shy away from that. So I like how you say it can even be on paper, that we're writing it down on paper. We don't need a tool. I have used Toggle.
Yeah. And you don't have to do it like every day, all day. Do it for like a few weeks so that you get a really good, so you get a really good understanding of, what your typical day is, and don't wait for a typical week either. So some people go, oh, well, I'm busy doing a launch right now, or I'm busy doing this kind of thing right now, or I'm doing this like big series of, classes and stuff. Don't worry about it. The only time you have to worry about it is if you're taking 3 weeks vacation. That's right. But other than that, just do it. Don't wait for the perfect week or the typical week, because it doesn't exist. Just start your time tracking, do it for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then you just look at how much time you're spending on each thing.
So say if I look at and I see, okay, I'm making Canva graphics and I'm in my email and I'm scrolling through our Facebook group and checking that, or yoga teachers will be, working on their invoicing, accounting stuff, whatever it is. How do we then take that list and decide what we keep? Because I think sometimes it's hard to give a task up.
Yeah. So that is a fear, right? Giving something up is a fear. So anytime something fear is holding you back, that's when you need to step forward. You can't let fear hold you back. And people are probably thinking right now, it's not fear, it's just that I know this really well and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly. It's fear because you think the other person isn't going to be able to do it as well.
Right.
And you know what? When they first start, maybe they won't be able to, but they'll learn. Just like you learned. Your first invoice probably wasn't the best invoice that you sent out either. I've seen so many people send out Word doc invoices. If you're sending a Word doc invoice, that's a problem. That's not the best way to do it. So allow your VA, especially if they have some experience, inform you on other ways of doing things. Like, that's the other thing, people get bogged down in trying to make their VA do everything exactly the way they had been doing it, which means no efficiencies get put into place. Nothing changes. It's all, nothing gets better. It's just that now somebody else is doing the same stuff. But once a VA comes on, they'll be able to say oh, you shouldn't, let's do it this way because of XYZ. And they may be able to save you money. They may be able to save you a lot more time. They may be able to increase the way how you look to your audience. And they can do a lot for your business if you let them, work in their zone of genius and don't let the fear stop you. Just, as long as you let them know how you've been doing it. I always like to say, try and delegate the outcomes to them. So if you're saying, okay, I have X number of clients, they get billed on a monthly basis. I'd love all my invoices to go out on or around the first of the month within 24 business hours of that date. I really want my invoices to look super professional and really match my business brand. That is, these are the criteria of my business brand. I'm fun and exciting, or I'm professional and caring and nurturing, whatever my business brand is. And I'd just like that to go out, and then I'd follow up done on a regular basis just to make sure people are paying. Just tell them what your outcomes, I don't want anybody going past X number of days late.
Right.
And then let them figure out, okay, great, how am I going to do that? They're going to look at your invoice and go, oh, well, your invoice doesn't kind of match your brand right now. Let's do, make these changes, or you really should have this information on your invoice and it's not there, or you should be sending it as a PDF and not as a Word doc, or you should be actually using an invoicing software. Whatever it is that they're going to suggest. And not every suggestion is going to be a winner, but at least you're going to look at different, newer ways to move forward in your business. Right. And it can really elevate things for you.
That's good. I love this focus on the outcome and also passing these things over and being open to someone else having a new idea, a new way of doing things. I know Cindy Stewart joined our team in the past year, I want to say. I wonder if it's been longer. Need to look that up. And right away, welcoming people into the Facebook group and pulling different data from that. Mm-hmm. She was like, this is my thing. I love doing this. I was so excited. And about a week and a half ago, I reached out to her and said, I'm not sure how you make those posts on Facebook. How do you come up with that wording? And she's like, oh, no, it's super simple. I actually pull it from here. You have provided this thing and that's where I get it. I was like, oh. So she's very efficient at that system. She figured it out.
Yeah. And your VA is going to be able to help you in all manner of things. If you're somebody, I don't know how many of your yoga teachers are doing webinars or anything like that, if they're doing anything in that space. But it's happened, almost every VA is probably, that's helped with on a webinar, has probably had this moment of looking at, there's needing to upgrade. If you're using Zoom webinar, for example, you can have 100 people in the thing. And then once it gets to 100, nobody else is able to come in the webinar. Well, if you have a VA on your team, then they're watching and they see, you hit 90 people. Let's just go ahead and upgrade that just to make sure that if you have another 10 people so without you even saying it, because it actually happened to me, with one of my clients, we were sitting there on a webinar. We weren't expecting 100 people. We were expecting it around 60.
Right.
And people just kept coming in. And I'm watching the numbers, and we got to like 90, 92 or something like that. And I'm like, well, so without her even saying anything, just like move over to the back end, upgrade that so that and we ended up with like 120 some odd people. But those other 20 people wouldn't have been able to get in if I hadn't have upgraded it.
I've been to webinars like that where the host did not expect the turnout, and then we were left either waiting or people weren't allowed in. Exactly that. And the other thing I've noticed is when people have a VA on that call, on that webinar or training or whatever it is, they can be typing in the comments or catching things or super helpful.
As they get to know your business, they can help answer some questions. If they're really familiar with whatever product it is you're talking about, they can answer questions. They can help you answer questions because even though you give people the instruction, put it in the Q&A area, people will still put it in the chat. So they can help direct people to put it in the right spot, or at least collect the questions that don't get put in there. The other thing that like it does is it helps you having a VA on your team. I really like it for even just invoice collection and things like that. So people get really weird about money, and they don't want to, so-and-so hasn't paid their invoice and it's like 30 days past due, and I've already reminded her twice. With a VA, you're disassociated from that. So it's no longer you've built this personal relationship with your client that you're like being stingy for the money or like whatever. Your VA is just like, hey, you got to pay your invoice. Come on, let's go. Like, and so you don't have to feel all those things around the money. It's just know that it's being worked on and getting collected. So, and your VA is going to handle it very nicely. And they're also removed from it too, because they're just following a procedure. They're just following a process. So they're just being able to say, hey, so-and-so, notice that your, invoice hasn't been paid yet. Just want to check in, make sure everything's okay. Do you need anything? Like when we might be able to expect payment? Like just being super kind. But both of you get to be disassociated from the whole money drama, and things get to move forward with a little easier.
It's so true. Like it's so true that someone else can answer a question in a different way when we have a little more distance. I'm thinking about in my email, and someone sent me this email with like 12 questions, and without skipping a beat, Cindy jumped in there and said, this is definitely the point where you book a one-on-one call with Shannon, where I would have been struggling with it. Like, how do I answer this person? How can I give them some value? And she's just like, no, this is beyond an email. She can't answer it. So
yeah.
It's making me think that a training time for a lot of our yoga teachers will host like big trainings, and those are huge amounts of money, sometimes like $3,000 for a 200-hour training. And it might really benefit to have some sort of a system, especially for payment plans, like someone else outside of you emailing saying like, this payment is due, just following up. It's not usually about people are refusing to pay. It's just that people are busy.
Yeah, people are busy. They forgot. They hit a hard time. Something happened, and there's all sorts of reasons. I've been doing customer service for 20 odd years now, handling lots of billing, and I don't think I've ever had it where somebody just didn't want to pay. Like, if somebody doesn't want to pay, they actually say, hey, I don't feel like I should pay because of this. They don't just not pay it.
Right.
The people, when an invoice is just sitting there, it's typically, I can't remember a time where it's been anything other than just somebody's forgotten or something like that. Because usually if somebody doesn't want to pay, they're pretty vocal about it.
Right. Exactly. Is there anything else? So if we track our time and we take a look at this list, is there anything else we do before we look at hiring a VA?
Other things you can do, but it's not always necessary. One thing you do need to do that is necessary is you need to look at your budget.
Right.
Like you need to be all up in your cash flow. You really need to understand what your money is like, and know and have like a budget in mind for what you can afford. And honestly, I would say that if it's anything less than $300 to $500 a month, you're probably not ready for a VA. And just make sure that you have at least three months of payment available, so that you're not in a situation where after 1 month you have to cancel with them, because
Right.
they're coming on in good faith thinking that this is going to continue. And if you're just like, if you only have 1 month and then you can't come up with the second month, like that puts them in a bad position, which doesn't really look good on you. And I know that nobody really wants to do that. So just kind of like make sure that you have a few months back so that you can actually move forward with them. And if you have anything less than like 10 hours of work to hand off to somebody a month, you probably don't really need a VA yet. You probably actually just need some time management skills.
Right. Oh, that's
yeah.
such a good point.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing that the list that like tracking what we're doing will be one way to tighten that up.
Yeah, for sure. Because I've had lots of people like, I need a VA. And then we like when I was first starting, before I really knew how to vet really well, I would start with them and they'd be like, I'm like, okay, so let's bring, I don't really have anything for you this week. What do you mean you don't? Like,
right.
how's that possible? Like, let's look at this. So, but yeah, because some people, and now it's like I get on calls with people and we just go through everything. And I have had calls with people where I'm just like, you actually don't need a VA yet. You're about 6 months to a year away from needing a VA. What you really need is to install Newsfeed Eradicator on your browser so that you don't see the newsfeed of Facebook or whatever equivalent it is for Instagram. Because
I don't know what it is for Instagram, but I sure use Newsfeed Eradicator. I feel like it's my best friend on Facebook.
Oh, it is. It is. Like, I love it because now I because I do have to do stuff on Facebook. But so what was happening is every time I had to do something on Facebook, I'd get on there and I'd see something interesting from a friend and I'd be like, oh, and then 2 hours later, I'd be like, still haven't done the thing I went in there to do.
Right.
So, equivalent on for Instagram would be like if you had like, not all phones have it, but like a screen time timer. So,
oh yeah.
So I know I can set it on my phone that I'm not allowed to go on Instagram between these hours.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And you can always override them as well. Like if it's something that you really need to do something, you can override it, do your thing. But at least it gives you that moment of awareness that you're about to go enter a time suck. So like if you override it, you're making a conscious decision rather than an unconscious one.
Yeah. One of our guests, James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, he actually had like an office admin or VA or someone who knew his social media passwords, and she changed them all on Monday, and he wrote all week. She'd give him his passwords on Friday, and then she'd change them again the next week.
That's one way to do it.
So sometimes we have to really step in our own way.
Yeah, whatever is going to get you there, right? And it's just a matter of how hungry are you for those goals? What are you willing to do for it?
Right. Okay. So then if we have all of those steps in place and we know, okay, it really is time for me to start looking for a VA. Also, when do we start looking? Like, I know in the past, I've been like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed with work. Like I actually can't fit all of this in. Now's the time to hire. And that's the hardest time to hire.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like that cycle is not necessarily like you're never going to be able to avoid that. You're going to have times where you're going to hire when you're way overwhelmed. But I would say like start looking if you're thinking that you might want to hire a VA within the next year. There's nothing wrong with starting to look, getting to know a few that are out there, starting reaching out to peers and colleagues that may have used one in the past and get referrals and start, getting your list of people that you would like to potentially talk to. And then I would say you want to hire them when you're ready, but not when you're too overwhelmed. but you should always hire slow and then fire fast. So like, don't do it the other way around. People do it the other way around all the time. They're just like, I need somebody, there's somebody, I'll take that person. And then that person sucks, but they leave them on for like 6 months because they're just hoping they'll get better. And it's like, no, you got to do it the other way around. Take your time hiring somebody, go through, really get to know them a little bit before you hire them. Due diligence must be completed before you actually hire them. So allow yourself a good 2 months to find somebody, because you're going to want to like get look at 10 to 15 people, whittle them down and get on calls with your top 3.
Right.
You can get on calls with more if you want to have some people do that where it's like they communicate through email and then they get on an introductory call and then they get on a final call. But you can, however you want to do it, figure out what your plan is, but give yourself a good 2 months so that you're not like rushing and trying to like get it all done, and then you're not cheating yourself out of the process.
Right. I
like to give them a little test in when I'm trying to hire somebody. So like in the email, when we first start talking through email, I'll say something like, it's a big learning curve working with me because I use a lot of tools that people haven't used before. So I would love for, just as a quick test, this will help me identify if you may or may not be a fit. Can you tell me how to add preview text to a ConvertKit email?
Right.
And and I give that because, I've had lots of different answers. Some people say no.
Right.
Some people say don't answer at all. But like all they have to do is like copy and paste that question into Google, and they are going to get like the exact article that I am expecting them to quote from. Just all they have to do is copy and paste. They'll get the exact article. But then even if they do figure that out, copy and paste, and they look for it, how they give me the information is very telling as well. Because do they just give me a link to the article and tell me to go read it? Right. Do they copy and paste it into their email body and just leave the formatting all wonky? Like, do they summarize it really nice and neat for me and make it super easy? Or do they even go one step further and give me a summary and then say, but I think for what you're trying to do, you may want to do this option. Like,
right.
Give me. So, you're not always going to get that final glorious moment of somebody actually suggesting a way forward. But if somebody can at least summarize rather than giving you the work of reading and dealing with wonky formatting, it's really telling some of the answers you get back. So like that question may not fit for like a yoga teacher, but you can usually think of something that you can ask them that their answer would be very telling.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of, we had an application go out recently, like a job application. And some of the questions on there were because we wanted someone who was in our Facebook group who was a yoga teacher to help moderate. And so one of the questions was, how many members are there in the Facebook group? And like one person put like this really low number because it's over 7,500 now. And I just thought, either you're confused of the question or like somehow we've missed something. And we put little questions like that, like who's the host of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast? And someone put a different person. So I was like, they really don't understand our business. So it really does, because it's hard. Like everyone on a resume makes themselves look better.
Yep.
Then like everybody's trying to get the job, obviously. And so I love those ways of really making it easier and finding like who feels like a good fit. Yeah.
There's a book that I picked up that was super helpful. The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Oh, yes. Amy Porterfield talks about this book.
Oh, yeah?
Okay. Yes, she does. I think she sends it to everyone on her team.
Oh, okay. So this is a really good book. I really liked it because it does it in a story format. It helps you identify who might be an ideal team player, and it gives you some qualifiers for what you're looking for, like the 3 main things that you're looking for. And then in the end, like they have like a lot of great questions, like suggested questions you can ask. And it's not like the questions that they're asking and all this stuff, it's not always going to be fitting for every business, but it's you can really use the information and take what you can for your own business. And it really gives you a different way of looking at who you're going to hire.
Right.
So because there was like three main things that you try and hit, and people tend to like go with this one or just this one, but you really want a mix of all three. So it's a really, I do recommend, if you're looking to hire anybody, take a look at that book first. And
Okay. We'll
Yeah.
put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah.
So I know that you have a VA, would you say agency? Is that what you call it?
Yeah. So a VA agency, I'm working into a VA agency. I call it a firm. I don't know why, but it's
Nice.
like, because an agency is more, I feel like it's more like I'm collecting VAs and then I just match them with people and I don't really have much to do with it. But I feel like I'm more like a firm where it's like I have some people on my team, they are employees, and we take on a client and we work together as a team to manage that client and their anything that they need. So
I can
yeah,
see how
but
that's different than an agency, because an agency is like, you think of a temp agency or a VA agency and you're all
yeah,
working together on it.
yeah, I feel like you're kind of like, just, okay, this person is yours, go have fun with them. But in mine, it's like when one of my team members takes a vacation, usually we try and work it with the client where they're just on vacation from that client as well. But if it's during a time where the client really needs them, then we just make sure we have somebody that can be backed up and take over a lot of the same things that the person was doing for that week or whatnot. So
Right.
yeah.
And so I booked a call with you to do like I don't know what you call it, like an introductory call where you kind of explain what your company does and how to know if you're ready for that step. And I have to say, well, first of all, I have to ask, do you still offer those calls?
Yeah, I still offer those calls. So I love doing those calls. I love getting on little consultation calls with people and just seeing if they're actually ready to for a VA, because it's really helpful to them.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to tell our Connected Yoga Teacher listeners, if they're thinking about getting a VA, to get on a call with you, because I know that there were a few things in that call where I thought, oh, like you gave me so many little tips for my own business to think about in the meantime, like as we build and grow, which is really cool. So it was
I'm
very
glad.
valuable.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that. It makes me, warms my heart.
I forget what they were, but like I implemented them right away and thought, oh yeah, I need to be doing that. So how else can we find a VA? If we can call you and we can see if your company is a good fit, where else would you suggest that we look? Like just through friends and resources, like recommendations? Is that the best way? Or
Well, yes and no. I mean, okay, so here's the thing with the friends and referrals thing. What tends to happen is somebody says, oh, I have this fantastic VA, you should check them out. And then you go, great, and you check them out, and that's the only person you talk to, and you hire them. And it turns out they're not a fit for you, because even though I'm amazing, I'm not a fit for everybody, and not everybody's a fit for me. Personalities exist, and
Right.
working styles exist, and goals. Like even like sometimes I have somebody that they're not working towards a goal that really excites me, and if I can't get excited for their business, then I'm not necessarily the right fit for them. So, so you don't want to like, referrals and everything are great ways to find them. Just don't let that be the only thing you do. And honestly, people always ask me, how do I find a VA? And like, you can't throw a stone without hitting a VA nowadays. Like,
It's so true.
they're all over the place. So, I mean, you can definitely, referrals from colleagues and peers, definitely is a good way to go. You can also, there's a ton of different VA associations that are up. So you can just search for VA associations, and they typically have a place where you can submit a request for a proposal. So you're saying, this is what I need, and then people give you back proposals. You can find them on Upwork. You can find them on Fiverr. You can find them in paid Facebook groups. So if you've taken any trainings, like if you've even like B school is a great place to find VAs if you happen to have taken B school. You can do a search, but any of the paid Facebook groups, and there's even some VA groups out there that you can post into. But yeah, it's really easy to find them. Just you need to be committed to vetting them is the thing. So the more important question is how to vet a VA.
Right. Okay. This is so helpful. Is there anything else that you can think of that would be helpful for our yoga teachers who are thinking, okay, it's time to hire a VA? Is there anything that you wish that you would have known earlier or that would help them along the journey when they just get started?
So, let's see. A couple of things that I like to do when I'm hiring somebody. So first of all, if you don't have processes and procedures in place, you don't have things documented, that's not a problem. The person you hire can help you with that. Like that, if that should be something that they help you with. But if you have any really complicated things going on in your business, it wouldn't hurt to just like the next time you're doing it, record it, like even just using Loom, or any other screen capture program. So if you have like a complicated invoicing process for some reason, or you're working on or you have if you do like big trainings or something like that, and you want to capture your process of how you typically run through that. Just like when you're working on it, just record it on Loom so that they can then watch back a video of you doing it, because saves you time for training later. You're already doing the work, just record it. And then you don't have to like sit down and train them later. You can give them the videos and then let them ask you questions. Yeah. And it gives them a resource for when they go to build out the actual process, they have resources to go back to as well. So, if you started thinking about hiring a VA, just start, recording what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and just like kind of talking through it while you're doing it. So, okay, I'm gonna go do my invoicing now. And so first thing I'm doing is this. And it doesn't have to be big and elaborate. If you stumble over your words, it's fine. If you get lost and start doing something else, it's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not high production. It's just recording some information for them that they have, to help with the training process when they start.
Oh, this is a great tip.
Yeah. And then they can help build out an actual like good training process for the next time that you're hiring a next person. But for now, with your first hire, let it be messy. It's fine.
And I love how you build this into the beginning of the process, because when you're in business and you hire people for whatever reason, people leave or you need to fire them. And it's pretty uncomfortable if you had to then build out that training process near the end of it. So it's better if it's at the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, that's good. And I like how we can pass it over to them. Obviously, they're the ones that are doing the task and they can write it down in a way that makes sense for them.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to add to, what to think about when hiring is think about for those final 2 or 3 people that you're going to interview, have them take a couple of tests like the DISC assessment. And I like doing the Colby A assessment as well. There's a couple of different ones you can do, but those are the 2 that I always do. It's a bit of an expense for you, but it's worth it. You get to find out, like for the Colby A, you get to find out like how they would normally, if left to their own devices, how they would normally react to a situation. So it's like, do they go into research mode first, or do they just act? Like what do they do? And there's no good or bad, but at least you know how they're going to handle things as they come up. And then with the DISC assessment, you get an idea of like, are they analytical, detail-oriented, like people at their core, like when they answer those questions. So
right. Oh, those are so cool. I love personality tests.
Yeah, I take way too many, but those 2 are really good.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best website that they go to?
The best way to get in touch with me, just go to anyoldtask.ca or email hello@anyoldtask.ca, and that'll get to me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shannon. It's been great.
Connected Yoga Teachers. I want to hear from you. How was that listening to Sandra? Thank you again, Sandra. I learned so much. We have a lot of links on our show notes page. We have a link to the newsfeed eradicator that I talked about. There's a great episode with James Clear, episode 123, where he talks about habits. I referred to that. A really good time management episode is 122. It was Productivity for Yoga Teachers with Amber De La Garza. There's a link to the book by Patrick Lencioni, I want to say, The Ideal Team Player, and also a link to Loom. That's what I use for my team when I'm showing them how to do something in the business. I'll make a quick Loom video while I'm doing a task, and that's how I do my training for any new tasks that team members are using. I also started just using Loom to update our team each and every week. I felt like because everyone's so busy, we're in different time zones, how fun would it be if I did a quick update video for our team? Everyone said that they really appreciated it so that they know where we're going. And we don't have to all meet for a team meeting. Instead, I can go over all of the needs. So we use Loom, Slack, and Voxer for our team. Those are the 3 tools that really help us to stay in touch. So as I said, Connected Yoga Teachers, next week you're going to hear me talk about the process behind hiring 2 new people for our team. So you've heard me talk about Nick and Sinead, and they were both hired at the same time. And Renee, who we hear from next week on the podcast, was really a huge part of making this process a lot easier on me. So she is going to walk through the whole process. She actually reminded me of a few points along the way that I had forgotten about. And that way, when you're ready to hire, you can either use her process or you can reach out and get her help with it. Before I close out, I want to share a few personal notes that are going on here in our household and here in what I usually close the podcast off with. So I usually close out saying, here's how we can meet up in person. And one of those is my Yoga for Pelvic Health training that happens September 19th and 20th. And I've put it on the calendar in the next 2 weeks to really take a look at and sit down with the studio owner, because everything is so up in the air, and decide, can this be an online training or does it need to be postponed? So if you are already signed up for the Yoga for Pelvic Health training, I'm going to be reaching out to you for your feedback. And if you're thinking about signing up for it, you still can. If we postponed it, then we would let you know. If we move it online, that would be something. It's a 20-hour training. It's something that a lot of people have asked for. It would mean that we could possibly have some more people sign up for it. Usually it's limited to 12 to 14 people. So in order to find out more about that, go to theconnectedyogateacher.com, look under trainings and events. Here in our household, we are taking walks on a regular basis. We have Sean, Sage, and myself living here. It is really tough not to have the boys here because they're out living in different places. The most that we can visit is when they come to stand outside and stand 6 feet away from each other. It was snowing this week, so the visit meant that I had to wear my toque. If you're not Canadian, this means a hat. Some of you call it a beanie, which it isn't. It's a toque. It's very different from a beanie. And a full, I still had my mitts and my winter coat on today. It has been snowing a little bit. It's been a bit frosty, but I shared on Instagram that my garden is still fine. It's still tucked away. I've only planted things that can handle frost and cold. And I want to share another update, a personal one, that I was talking about how much of a struggle it has been to get to my yoga practice. I have felt so blessed to be able to sign up for some online live classes with yoga teachers from around the world. I'll make sure to share in the show notes where you can either list your classes there or you can look around and support other connected yoga teachers who are offering online yoga. It has felt so good to show up live with the teacher and go through a yoga practice. It has made a huge difference in my life. I am so grateful for all of you who are teaching regular weekly live classes. It's been a game changer in my life. So do not underestimate the value of what you are offering. It's almost bringing me to tears, just thinking of how much of a difference it has made. I know everyone around the world is dealing with different things with this pandemic, but one of the overarching things is that we all have a change in our lives. We all have different stress in our lives, and yoga is one of those things that can make such a difference. You know, connecting back to your body, your mind, yourself. I do not have to convince all of you. This is why you chose to be yoga teachers. I do feel, though, that I really want you to remember how much of a gift you are putting out into this world. So it's time to sign off. I want to know, what will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?